What is up, party people? It is your boy Mutt-Man, and we got a heck of a show for you tonight. Straight from the greatness. Oh snap! I forgot one. Sorry. No,
Is
man.
this live right now? What the
We
heck
are
are we
live.
doing?
Dude, we're live.
Gosh, you told me not to mess up your intro, and you just straight ruined Carl's intro.
Let me start over with Karl.
Okay, all right. I'll give you a second chance.
Thanks.
Okay,
I appreciate it, buddy. Can you watch
All
the chat too, by the way, tonight?
I got it taken care of. Don't you even worry about it.
That's what I want to hear. Okay, we've got a great show for you tonight. We're talking to Karl O. Rowe, the creator of DEATHSWORN, which is one of my personal favorite comic books that's coming out of the indie scene right now. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Karl, would you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Try to think of something you may not have said about yourself thus far. Let us in on who Karl is, and then we'll get into the comic book.
Oh, God.
Come on, get deep, man. Dig deep.
Deep? Well, I mean, every kind of creative outlet I've ever, or hobby I've had has always been a creative outlet, and it's always been like escape. So it's weird for me to be like, oh, I'm Karl, and I'm going to be on a show, and I'm going to speak to people, and I'm going to draw and speak to people, because anything. I had a speech impediment growing up. I was tongue-tied, so I kind of shouldn't be here. I'm terrified of these things, and I have to kind of get beaten out of me. And then I guess that kind of led to more introversion, and so yeah, I mean, I don't know how to be like me. And I always say on these things, I'm like, I don't have like like on mailings, like I used to like build bridges, and then I became a comic book artist. Like I don't have that. I'm like, I just kind of draw a lot. Hi.
You're born to do it, obviously, man. I mean, like at your young age, you've already reached a very high status of artistry. So it's obvious that this is what you do and what you love to do. You're kind of like made to do it. Would you say so?
Yeah, I feel most comfortable doing it. And
yeah.
But even at that, I mean, it kind of, it took a while to even assert any confidence about that,
Yeah.
And I don't know, it took a lot of other people. It took a lot of people that I really respect.
Yeah.
Like talking to them and creating with them, and like stuff like that. Like Vaughn's been like that. Vaughn Cost is giving me like
great
a ton of backup and a ton of like that, like mentor. Like we're like one for one, almost like the same guy, like 20 years apart, I think.
Yeah.
So
you've been called an old soul by several people I've heard, and I agree with that. You kind of have an old soul, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's an old soul or I just know that the old stuff is better, but
yeah, you're absolutely 100% right about that. Unfortunately, a lot of people that are your age don't see that. They think what they're into is good, and they have no idea because they've never been into Masters of the Universe or ever seen DEATHSWORN or anything like that.
A lot of like how I guess I know the old stuff is, first to start off with video. Like one of my earliest memories ever is being able to work the VHS machine and putting Masters of the Universe in the movie.
Yeah.
And I know that we also had tons of and this would have, I remember this was in our old house. We moved when I was turning 4, so that's kind of my age I was at. And I know we had Masters of the Universe, the original like TV show, some of them on video, but we also had the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons.
Oh man, those are so good.
Yeah, and in all the color and stuff, and I was obsessed with those because they are pure magic. Like they're almost they're so innocent in how they even portray destruction. Like buildings don't crumble; they bend and shake in the wind. It's it's incredible. And then there's the one thing, and there's sort of an homage to it that's going to be coming up in later DEATHSWORNs, but my favorite thing ever is there's some guy like shooting a laser beam. I think he's the evil scientist, and he's shooting a laser beam out of his tower, and Superman gets the barrel that the laser's shooting out of, and he just starts wrapping it up
Yeah, see,
and twisting it and turning it, and
Yeah.
then it causes the laser to just bump back in. And it's not like that's not science. That's not. It's so. It's just fairy tale. It's like a cool fairy tale, you know.
as I remember that
And so I
scene.
had that,
Oh, sorry.
and then sorry, yeah,
As I remember that scene, the barrel starts to get so hot it becomes almost like molten metal. Is that right?
yeah,
And then it blows
yeah,
up. Yeah. So like that was a hand painted cell. So when I'm looking at those old cartoons and looking at that stuff, that's what I'm thinking. Like, man, they that's a special effect, as early a special effect as you're going to find, and they actually kind of like made it look like that hot molten metal, and then it blows up. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I got excited.
no, and that was the first use of rotoscoping as well. That cartoon,
Uh-huh.
I
Hmm.
think,
Right.
I think they invented it on that. That's why, like, I've seen someone like break it down where they're showing Superman land, and you can see every single sort of movement and arch just in his foot as he lands. When before it would just be boom. And they have this Superman when he lands, it's like, there's grace to it. It's someone actually landing,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and then I guess after that, I would have gotten into comics. But over here, the comics I was getting into were ones just available in newsagents. And so they're
Right.
kind of like the ones over here that are available in newsagents are sort of like the Walmart giants that they're selling,
Huh. Yeah.
where it's like tree. Um, it's a cardstock cover, just staple, but it'd be about 3 issues long, and there'd be different. They'd be all from different time periods. There'd be like a current one, a middle, like a kind of older one, and then there would be like a real retro old school one reprint in the back. And you have tons of stuff. You had like they would cross over titles, so you had Wolverine and Gambit. And so there'd be 2 Wolverine stories, then a Gambit story, and then they ran out of Gambit material, so they made it Wolverine and Deadpool. So you had 2 Wolverine stories and then a Deadpool story, but you had Spider-Man, and it would be cool because if Electro was the bad guy in the modern stories, they'd go back and show like the Steve Ditko Electro stuff in the back. And so you were sort of like, if that was my intro to comics, so I was already being introduced to continuity and style and how it changed and how simple, like the way you draw Spider-Man's eyes can put him in a completely different timeline,
Yeah.
And but I guess that kind of taught me to be real fluid with it, because I knew it was like it meant sort of nothing. And I don't really care about continuity in mainstream comics either. When someone's like, it's the return of Wolverine, I'm like, okay, he should just ride up on a motorbike outside the X-Mansion. That's the return of Wolverine. That's not just let's not like make some crappy storyline because you killed him off for a couple of bucks, like.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I mean He-Man, I got way into He-Man because when they brought out the new cartoon, at the same time they were rerunning the old show a lot over here.
When you say the new cartoon,
And
you're talking like 2006, is that right? Or
I think it was 2002. It was around
okay.
then.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know exactly, but yeah. And that was pretty cool because that was like that almost merged, because I love the movie one. Like I love the movie. Like my vision of Eternia, if I could make a Masters of the Universe comic, it would be that movie.
Yeah.
Just get rid of all the chick from Dancing in the Dark music video part. Just get rid of all of that. And bring in Orko and Battlecat and Trapjaw, and then you're sorted. Like,
Man,
but
you're talking my language, brother.
Yep.
I think we would have been
but
good
yeah,
buddies.
that new cartoon was like a mixture of the old one and the kind of serious tone of the movie, like with Skeletor and stuff.
I like that Funimation style, though. I know it was a little bit, kind of out of the box. A lot of this stuff, like He-Man, would move the same way regardless of the scene he was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was a lot of, they were reusing frames and stuff, right?
Yeah, they would just put they would use the same cells, reuse the same cells in front of a different background image. but for whatever reason, like that still appeals to me. I guess because when I was a kid, that was what I was into. So like when I see it now, it doesn't bother me. Some people give it a hard time, that animation style, but for some reason, it doesn't bother me. Like the way Evil Lynn would walk into the scene, and it would always be the same thing.
Yeah. Or I always loved how He-Man always found a way into someone's lair by punching it the exact same way. It was like that frame of him. Or like it didn't matter where he was, what landscape he was in. He could be in someone's bathroom. He'd find the same giant boulder to throw at someone.
Yeah, I love it too. All right, well, okay, we got a little bit of insight on you. Let's talk about your creation, DEATHSWORN. Let me share the screen here. Give me a second. Let's do this. All right. You're sitting right now, let me refresh, but you're sitting right now at 5967. I mean, dude, we're going to see 6,000 on this show. We're at 200% funded. That's awesome. Congratulations on the success.
Thanks,
You've got 28 days left, so you are rocking and rolling. Cooking with grease, as they say.
Crushing it.
So let's for people that don't know anything about it that might watch this, give us the pitch. What is this all about?
Okay, so I love doing these pitches at 3 a.m. It's great. Yeah. So DEATHSWORN is an 80s inspired epic space fantasy. It's the Dark Stars are an empire of solar. Ugh. See?
You're good.
You're still,
Dark Star,
you're still 10 times better than Dan on his best.
Yeah. 100%. I agree.
All right. The Dark Stars are an empire of sun-stealing solar vampires. They use these giant space stations and sun stations to suck the energy from suns because they need it for their own survival, but they also use it to fuel their takeover. And by doing this, they've killed thousands of planetary systems and they've enslaved all their people. And among all this death and destruction, most people bow to their new leaders, while few rage a personal war against those that have taken everything from them. And that's DEATHSWORN.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Already sounds intriguing. Why don't you tell us about some of these characters that we're seeing?
Okay, well, let's start off with the main man, DEATHSWORN.
Yeah.
So he's sort of, whenever I kind of label him as a type of character, I always say like legendary outlaw.
Uh-huh.
He has a couple of hits under his belt. He's wanted. He's known. But he's mysterious. He has a very dark, shaded past that you slowly start to uncover. And it's cool the way you uncover in the background. It's not an exposition dump or anything. You partly uncover it through his eyes, but you also uncover it through people knowing about what he used to belong to and what the people he used to belong to used to do. And so you kind of find that how dark and how mysterious his past is through everyone else surrounding him, which is a cool way to do it because he barely talks.
He doesn't say a whole lot, especially in the first two books that I've got. And it does kind of give it that Wolverine quality where you really want to know what's behind the mystery of this guy. So you've definitely captured my imagination about what his past could possibly be. So I love it.
Yeah, well, another thing I wanted that kind of Mad Max and Snake Plissken kind of feel, but for his background, I wanted something that's more sort of just epic as the Cliff Notes, something where you can just go boom, 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 and it's just you don't have to fill in the details. You're just like, oh wow, that's that, and more pointed to, because I think it's way more interesting where you just kind of point to it and you go, okay. And I like doing that with the story anyway, like not doing exposition and really kind of explaining like the kind of makeup of that world or characters through action. Like the Dark Stars, you find out that they need solar chambers to survive by the main female character needing the solar chamber to survive.
Yeah. Well, tell us about her. What's her name?
Okay, that's Tatiana Darkstar. She's the princess of the Empire,
Hmm.
and she's a rebellious princess. Like these space fantasies tend to
Yeah,
have rebellious space princesses.
yeah.
There's never a rebellious space prince.
You're unapologetically drawing on some things that have been done before, which I think is great, and that makes it a lot of fun because it's easy to jump into a story like this if you recognize some of these, styles of storytelling.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is uh, she has this twin brother dynamic,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's on the other side.
Hmm.
It's essentially on the dark side, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if Luke and Leia, but they were on the Empire.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's a rebellious princess, and
And what about this guy right here? This
that's
dapper
Dominic
guy
Danger.
right here. Say his name
Yeah,
again, please.
Dominic Danger.
Yeah. What's his
He's
deal?
he's an ex-space pirate who tried to be a good guy, but realized that being a good guy doesn't pay much in in a galaxy ruled by evil vampires. So he became a bounty hunter,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
so he's a good heart, even if he doesn't know it. But
All right.
Awesome. I got a couple questions for him. You're hogging the show, Mutt.
I'm
So I got a
sorry.
couple quick
I'm
questions
sorry.
for
Go
Karl.
ahead.
No, number one, I wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple folks that have stopped by and said hello. Zaid Comics. That is Philip from Magic Cop.
Yep.
And then his brother, is it Brandon? I think.
Yes.
Brandon, yes.
Yep.
And then also we have Derricos Galvin, otherwise known AKA Cody, who is a good friend of ours, and he is going to be on the show tomorrow night. And he has Wisdom Comes that's going to be coming out soon. You've probably seen that as well. Those guys are saying hello. But what I wanted to ask you, Karl, is you were kind of alluding to the fact that like Tatiana is almost like a reverse Leia in some ways. Did you get inspiration from Star Wars? And I know you have a very 80s inspired look, but do you have a very 80s inspired feel because of the stuff you got? And is there anything like specifically that gave you a lot of input for this book?
Star Wars is definitely up there.
Yeah. It's hard not to, right?
But it's sort of yeah. It's hard not to. It's like when the guy bases stories on the template that everybody bases stories on.
Sure, yeah, the hero's journey.
Yeah. So, but I mean, stylically, yeah. I'm trying to think of if there's anything specifically, but it's also like there's so much. I mean, I think a lot of the Star Wars stuff, I actually think came more from the Masters movie
Gotcha,
and what
yeah.
that took from Star Wars, because when I was thinking of like when I designed the Emperor, I said this is Langella Skeletor meets Jack Kirby, but Langella Skeletor is already Skeletor meets Jack Kirby, so
yeah,
I kind of just redid. I just took the golden Skeletor and painted him black.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I can totally see, and we've talked about this before, I can see a lot of like Jack Kirby-esque stuff, especially if you go up a little bit, Mutt, to that one where the that like space station and those ships are flying out of it, like the Doctor Doom mouth and like the crazy headdress you have on that. And I love little like nods and winks like that, because a lot of people won't catch that, but it's got some style and some feel to it, and it's really cool. And so I always love seeing those, like a little bit of flavor from the things you love in books like this.
Thanks, man. But that was the coolest thing ever when you saw Doctor Doom as a kid, and he had that weird shape in his mat, and you were like, what is that? Is that like a focal processor, or like what is that shape? Like, what is that?
Yeah,
it's so cool. That's such a good image too. It's awesome.
Tell us about this guy right here, the brother.
Yeah, so that's the prince. That's the twin brother of Tatiana, and so he's He's much more for the cause of the Dark Star Empire, but he thinks he can run it better than his dad. He thinks he'd be better for the people when his dad sort of is more out for himself.
Yeah.
And
Is
but
he
he doesn't
just
get to
power
prove him.
hungry?
He's power hungry, but he's a weak person emotionally, you know.
Right.
So there's a dispute because Tatiana always gets his missions because Tatiana can handle it herself. She can
Right.
kick ass. She's an emissary for the Empire that doesn't make a show of it. The Emperor doesn't like his little bratty kid going out being a drama queen, and he's put in a place where he has to let him out. And this is Nikolai going out trying to prove himself, and he's gonna bring back a couple of heads if he has to.
Mm.
Okay. Now, what about the guy shows up in the first book, not the second book, but he's this guy right here, and it kind of reminds me of Wesley Snipes from
Yeah,
Demolition Man.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
which I think I've seen that movie 25 times. I think.
I've had to have seen it more than that. That movie is a very big part of my childhood.
I don't know why. Me and my friends loved it, and it was when I was like 18 years old. So it was in the Dollar Theater. We had a Dollar Theater, and we went to watch it literally, I think 19 times.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Zaid Comics says Simon Phoenix.
Simon Phoenix. That's right. Okay, that's awesome.
yeah.
I
It's
love-
funny because that guy's design. It started as there was an original version of this where there was sort of like a prologue, and then I dropped that one for a while, and then I picked it back up way later, and it was completely different. But in the original version, he was a character that was just a throwaway guy that this previous version of DEATHSWORN knew, and I just took that. I was like, I like that look, the
Yeah.
Simon Phoenix, like without the blonde hair and the cool black guy, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. It's a cool buddy cop dynamic with him and DEATHSWORN at that point. And then when I came up with this character, I was like, I kind of like that design, and then not spoilers, Mutt, you know, but what that character becomes, I thought that the yellow hair was sort of
Fitting.
yeah, it was like it was cool as, and then he has a name that comes from Celtic mythology. So I thought,
Okay, I was wondering about that because he's called Lou, right? And he
Yeah.
calls himself the god of losers, and then we find out something different about him later. I like that.
you
twist.
find out a lot about him. He has what he did, the DEATHSWORN in Captivium, has has reverberations throughout the entire
Okay,
story.
then I think that's what this is alluding to down here because I was kind of studying this
So-
image.
I was waiting for you to go to this one. That one, that one right there.
Yeah,
That's a phenomenal page
I
in a
love that
lot
page.
in a lot of different ways. It's such a good one. The whole I want to read this comic just based on what I'm seeing right here. Once again, Kirby inspired headdress, like almost Star Wars feeling, like Trooper dude back there. We
Yeah.
got a transformation. We have a lot of feeling. It looks so good. And correct me if I'm wrong. You do the colors as well, right?
Yeah,
That's
do
great. Yeah,
everything.
yeah. You got it. You got it nailed, man. That's great.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, this right here has got me intrigued. This
Exactly.
transformation scene right here because this guy is instantly likable in the first comic or the first part of it, and now I'm seeing something else about him. So I'm very excited about Lou.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like. I think you're gonna like it.
That's awesome.
I'm really interested in the Emperor too. While we're here talking about this, because he's one of these characters that seems to be bigger than life, and we compared him to a lot of big Jack Kirby type creations and some Star Wars stuff. But how powerful is this guy? Does he have power that is like can he shoot lasers or what can he do?
You see that big light on his head?
Yeah.
He can channel all the solar energy he's absorbed over the hundreds of years through that.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Cool.
And so there's a little panels where he's threatening Nico in the first book where you see it kind of going crazy, charging up, and there's all flares coming out of it and stuff. But yeah,
Wow.
Very
Okay.
cool.
So he hoards it as much of this power as he can because uh, he's somehow or another attached to the space station. Is that correct?
yeah. And there's more sort of, there's the living battery idea and stuff in the first one where they're looking for a sun god
Yeah.
to basically sap the power from this sun god and make the emperor immortal so he can rule forever.
I think we just need to turn. I'm not going to do it, but I think we just need to turn this into a spoiler show and just spoil. We'll just go page by page because look, I got it right here. We'll just go page by page.
Yeah.
I got this one, and I'll just let everybody see what's going to happen. I don't have book 3, so I don't know what's going to happen.
So your campaign, Karl, is for book 1, but is this like what Mutt already has, or is it like the collection?
Yeah, well, before it was being put out by Revolve Comics.
Right. Yep.
They put out chapter 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then that kind of stuff there changed, and I took on my own, and I said, this is the way to do it, and I'm going to print it on the best paper I can get.
Yep.
And fix all my colors because that was my first sort of time doing it. Colors were kind of muddy, darker than I kind of thought they would show. Going back and redoing all those things, and I'm adding more. What would have been, I think, a 20-page chapter 3 of expanded to 4 pages. I think I've added about 4 pages of a new intro that shows more of sort of a background to the Dark Stars at the start of the book.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's interesting. Like, this is sort of my version of getting it out there. Like, this is really my.
You had it
point.
Yeah, you had it serialized, and this is your like the way you want it to be read, correct?
Yeah, and also I was sort of learning on the ground running back when I was doing that, and this is sort of I've sat with these characters a bit more. When I've been going back and rewriting it because I've re-lettered a lot of chapter 1. And I've been surprised by how much I've been able to put into it and twist and change. And just looking at what I had characters say before and be like, oh, they wouldn't say that. And then I'm looking at DEATHSWORN now and I'm like, he talks way too much. I have to make him talk less.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of cool though that you had that experience because I think it's probably the opposite for most people. Like they would love to get to a publisher, but there's something really cool about being able to control every aspect of it from beginning to end because you get to put out the quality product that you want, right? So I'm excited to see it. I know Mutt has the original he bought from Revolver, which maybe one day is going to be a super collector's edition, right?
Absolutely. But I'll never.
Yeah, maybe. And also, I put this out on Twitter to anybody who bought the old versions, just like DM me the screenshot or the email from the Revolve store, Etsy store, and the ID number of the Indiegogo, and I'll throw in a sketch card.
Oh, sweet!
To thank you for supporting it in its early days.
All right, Mutt's gonna get a sketch card.
That'll be
nice.
I wanted to ask,
my thing's robot now.
Oh, are you okay? Is it coming back?
Can you hear us now, Karl?
Okay, yeah, I think it's good now.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
No problem.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about you kind of talked about a little.
I think there's a delay.
Oh, okay. You back with us yet?
There's definitely a delay.
Hello.
I think so.
Okay. So when you started making this, you kind of came up with.
Just keep talking.
All right.
But you keep talking.
All right. You came up with characters, right? And then you kind of mashed them together to make the story. Is that how this thing came about?
Yeah, the I think the first character that came out of am I back or what?
Yeah,
No?
we hear you. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
hear you.
I'm actually just talking barrel through.
Yeah, just talk. Just go
just
for
keep
it.
talking. We'll just let you talk.
Oh, okay, so yeah, the first character I came up with for this was Tatiana, and she was part of a different thing. And she actually spawned the whole idea of solar. I think I was doing some weird vampire story that was was going to try put in space, and I heard someone's name. I think it was like some Russian girl's name, and her name was it sounded like Darkstar. Like,
Huh.
oh, that's a cool name for like some cool Eastern European like vampire princess thing. And Darkstar has this like it's cool for space, and I thought Darkstar. I was like, how could someone get dark stars? And I thought, well, if you turn stars dark, you could be called Darkstar. And so I was like, well, what if they're vampires that run on sun instead of they're afraid of sun? And so they have this giant empire taking over sun. And so she was the first one there, and that kind of just sat. And then I made up Dominic Danger as a joke to just do some funny covers with a weird throwback, like galactic hero, Silver Age character. And back then he was way Silver Age. He had the kind of Buck Rogersy cap, but he had like it was the proper football, like American football shaped cap. And he sat around, and then I was trying to make more characters like that were just iconic, because I was trying to make a character that I wanted to be my signature, to like just someone that I didn't have to draw a comic book about, but I could put in situations and make prints of and stuff. Not prints, but make images of that might get passed around, might be popular. And I thought of, what if you put a Frank Frazetta barbarian in a space fantasy setting?
Yeah.
And then I
I'm
just
glad you said
that
that.
on like 2016, I think.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you said
Sorry,
the Frank
there's still
Frazetta.
a bit of a delay.
It's okay. I'm glad you said Frank Frazetta, because I think, and I've given this advice to somebody else too, but I think if you made a Frazetta inspired, like painted on the side of a van, you know, T-shirt of DEATHSWORN holding his axe up and everything, I would be all about that tier. I love a crazy like van quality airbrush painting on a T-shirt. That would make my day. And it fits your whole feeling
yeah,
for the book, right? That like 80s vibe. It'd be so cool.
but yeah, after I came up with him, after thinking that, I kept drawing them. I have a notebook somewhere, and it's a cool notebook because it's like a comic book sketchbook. It's like the size of a regular comic book. It's pretty cool, and it's like just staple. It's like 24 pages, like a comic book. But I was drawing in that, and I kept drawing like just thumbnails for these like throwback fake covers, and kept putting them situations with different characters and different like cliche characters and archetypes and stuff. And like there was real like sort of Conan sorcerers and stuff I put in it.
Yes.
And I kept putting Tatiana and Dominic in with it, and I just kept. And then once I got them, I was like, wait a second, this is kind of the perfect trio. This is like the headstrong brute, the confident but like sort of arrogant girl, and the kind of comedy relief character,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just kind of came together. And then I started making it from that, and then that version of it sort of ended, and then I didn't work in it for about maybe 4 months, and then I picked it back up, and it was the way I picked it back up, I think, was way for the benefit. I think the original version was crap. The original version had some weird stuff in it.
Well, I love what you've got going. I do want to know a little bit more about Princess Tatiana. She's having a moral crisis, right? Like that's where we start the story out. She's having a problem with what they're doing.
Yeah, so she's sort of wait, is it frozen? I don't know if it.
No, you're not frozen.
You're not
good.
frozen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. She's at a place where she's run away a lot day back, and she sort of doesn't know if she knows if the Dark Stars keep going, there's not going to be a gap. And she is in a position where she can't really do anything about it. The only thing she can do is try. The only thing she could do to stop them, because she can't get away from them, is try to kill them. And so I guess she's sort of in denial of that fact, and that's what keeps her around. And it takes DEATHSWORN to really have her form a stance, because DEATHSWORN is so in the opposite direction. DEATHSWORN is like, no, they're gonna die.
Is she a match for DEATHSWORN? Like, can she take him? Or
I think
toe-to-toe with him?
Well, I think when she gets him, it's either by surprise or by a means that DEATHSWORN doesn't understand. DEATHSWORN is like, even when you get to see him throw that axe around a bit, you don't, and he uses it more like a baseball bat. He doesn't really know how to use it like an axe. He's just a brute,
Right.
So, yeah, she can kind of subdue him or get him by surprise or do something like that. But yeah, what DEATHSWORN lacks in speed, she makes up for, I guess.
Okay.
Which is how I would pair them. Speed and smarts.
I asked a little bit about it on the live stream with Malin, but I want to know a little bit more about this guy here. You can see him. Mongrel. Yeah, the space pirate Mongrel.
That's a cool name. That's a He-Man
I love
name, right?
Yeah,
it is.
You're right. It's the perfect
the
He-Man
space
name.
pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's he kind of what he sort of gives away in the story, I guess, is he found Dominic. This is the guy that found Dominic and was the only thing that Dominic kind of had as family. Dominic was raised by these space pirates, so he's he kind of found him in Star Space. And these guys, the pirates, are pure scavengers. They make do what they have. They make the best out of every opportunity, and that's going to be, I should probably just reveal it because I don't know, and I don't necessarily know when I'm going to put it back up, but it's a cool story anyway. What the pirates do is they trail behind the Empire. So when the Empire goes and they enslave and destroy and suck everything out of a sun and the planets, then the pirates come in and they loot. And that's how they found Dominic.
Yeah.
They went to loot a devastated planet, and there was a baby boy.
Huh.
Well, it definitely has classic undertones from classic pirate tales, and it makes you, it definitely makes me want to see that story through. So, is there any chance for a Dominic Danger offshoot, maybe?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd also love to go back and show back when the Empire were still space pirates, and maybe their wars with different space pirates, how they didn't get on, how they were different from the other space pirates, how they were getting more technologically advanced than them and building these space stations,
Yeah.
And maybe there was some cool space pirate. There's a pure space pirate romp there,
Oh,
but
man.
yeah, one of the good things I like to point out with the trio of characters, it's I always say that DEATHSWORN is a guy that lost everything. Dominic is a guy that never had anything to lose, and Tatiana is right in the middle.
That's cool.
And so that's
So,
sort of how their trio and how their personalities like interact.
so do you have you written out like a whole arc? Do you have more like that you're ready to publish in the future, or are you trying to do some self-contained stories? Like, will this book be able to go like you can have legs on this thing and just keep it going? What's your plan for that?
Yeah, I have ideas for it, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't like to. I don't know where it is, because when you're doing these things as big books,
Yep.
and the way it's looking like I'll have to do it for the future is I have to split each arc into two of these books, So each arc will have the subtitle and then book one or book two or whatever. And but there might be, depending on how things work out, there might be a potential for them to be collected better. But uh, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to do tons of stuff, and I mean the Ashcans are going to be. I want to do an Ashcan with every book, and I want each one to be way different than the one before. I want them to
Gotcha.
kind of. I want the only thing in common with each Ashcan is to be the fact that they're an Ashcan.
That's cool.
So Ashcan 1 is Ashcan 1, but Ashcan 2 is not the second part of 1. It's just a completely different self-contained book,
Sweet. No, it's great. I see this your property as having a lot of potential for like Mutt was saying, you can spin off series with Dominic Danger or whatever, and it has also a lot of opportunity for you to just continue this crazy space adventure. Like Star Wars started off as one single storyline that more like there are literally thousands of characters that it's turned into, and that's kind of how I see this world as very open to interpretation, and you can really take in a lot of different ways. So I hope that you have some more ideas that you're able to put out in the future in these books, like maybe add some storylines and grow the whole like mythos of the book, because it looks like a world you could build a lot into and grow from. So yeah.
I definitely want to.
Yeah, I have a plan for.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have a plan. Like I definitely have. I know the future, and I've had ideas, and I've planned out,
And
a
there's the
tree
future.
arc, like sort of structure for at least two other arcs. But it depends on when I get to them if I'm going to stick with that idea, because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's the road I have to take him down at that point, and then it's like, oh no, well, not that. And I'm like with doing it in these book formats, I always want to put them in positions where and get them to change to where they're sort of the way they interact is not the same anymore. Like things have changed with each of them interact, and so the one character that might be dragging them down in the first arc is the one character that's trying to bring them together in the second one. And always trying to move them that way. But I also like the other way, even when I'm trying to sort of plan out single issues to a big arc, I always try to do the hero's journey arc, the build and then the drop and then the build again. And so if I do the second arc, it will probably be towards the end of it will be the darkest sort of version of that. And then that's good because then I can build them back up, and then that changes the whole dynamic again. So, but
Cool.
I have plans for that. I know how I'm going to, if I have to bring them down and I have to make it dark, I know how I'm going to do it.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask you about your crowdfunding. It's kind of a two-part question. Is how many crowdfunding? How many times have you crowdfunded? That's the first question, and then the second part is, you seem to be pretty good at marketing. So, do you have a marketing background?
No, no to both of those. I mean, I never crowdfunded anything. It terrified me for forever. Like I was terrified of it. And I remember even with my older publisher, we were talking before, and he said something about I said something about how I wanted to do a kind of magazine format annual where it was a ton of stuff and you previewed news stories and there'd be stories exclusive to that. And I was like, I'm getting these toys made and I think it would be cool to do that. And right, I look back on it now and I'm like, that was a stupid idea. Who could I sell that to ever? But he said, I remember he turned around and he said, well, we should crowdfund it. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, no one's going to want to buy that. Like, no one will give us any money. But yeah, so I no the promo stuff, I guess, the marketing, I think that's another thing where just sort of has grown as I've gotten better at it and my pitch is refined for it, and it's all that stuff I kind of learned by just doing it really bad for a long time, and then you get kind of good at it and you're like,
That's what you got to do, man. That's what you got to do.
Well, I like a lot of the different things you've already come up with. Like action figures, obviously, is one big thing, and you're really good at coming up with lots of different ways to get people into the product, like throwing in an ash can. That's a big one, and so I can tell you've done your homework, and you're really good at getting people intrigued in your work. Even down to like the graphic design type stuff, you keep a real strong branding effort throughout. So it's really cool to see. Like when I see some of your stuff, it's DEATHSWORN stuff. It's always looks the same. It's DEATHSWORN. The branding is there, the colors are there. So you've done a really excellent job at that. And even down to the little perk windows. I mean, it's real important. Like you got your signature in there, so it kind of gives that authenticity to it. And you've even got Turbo Comics now, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Is that your new?
Yeah.
Is that the name officially?
Your imprint.
Yeah, that's my imprint.
That's cool.
It's the best way. I think it's the best way of explaining it without explaining it. It's like that's sort of what I do.
Yeah.
I think everything I kind of want to do and everything I'm drawn to is like, just look at it. If you like looking at it, you're gonna like it. And I have a story about that. I have a story about people looking at my stuff and going, "That's it," because I did when I was more welcome around the comic scene over here. I did some art fair, some comic. I think I forget what they're called, but comic fair, and it was sort of more like national college graduate sort of selling postcards and like little sort of what are those things, paperweights and stuff. It was more like that, and I kind of showed up with my, rock and roll, heavy metal, 80s pure comic book comic. And I'm like, oh, this is not my audience at all. And it's all, everybody else, it's all women. And they're all doing they all have their little postcards with their cat drawings on it that they're selling. They're selling tons and I'm selling nothing, selling absolutely nothing. And we weren't allowed to bring our big stand-ups, our big roll-up banners. And so I was like, oh, how am I going to advertise? How am I going to get people over? So I took a big print I had of the first cover, I think, and I just taped it to the front of my desk. And about 3 times this same thing happened, right? This girl would walk in and trailing behind her would be this guy, this big guy, about 3 times his girl size, big beard. He's wearing a hoodie. The hoodie has has Doom on it, or it has Metallica or something on it. And he looks depressed. His head's down. He's like, "Oh, I'm being dragged to another one of these things. I have to look at these cat postcards. There's nothing for me." And all 3 times, that guy would pick up his head and he would see my big print hanging off my front of my desk, and he'd walk over and he'd buy a comic straight away. Every 3 times it happened, and it happened the exact same way.
That's hilarious. He'd have something to read while his girlfriend's dragging him around to look at cat postcards or whatever. That's awesome.
Well, it's it's a comic that's designed for guys.
Yeah, for sure.
That's that's the major percentage of the audience, as far as I understand. I know that there's a lot more women coming into comics, but I think you see that in other places.
But I also think that the the women readers that I have, they like the guy as much as any other guys would like the girl characters, you know, like,
Yeah.
and they like the girl characters too. They're just people that are attracted to these big, strong, bold, larger than life figures, you know. And I think it's a very specific type of girl that would share the same interest across that, you know. I'm definitely not getting any My Little Pony fans. Like, definitely not.
That's great.
Yeah, we're not either.
No,
we're not either.
Definitely not.
No, with the
Hero.
zombie patriot. No.
Yeah,
That's right.
We're in the same boat, you know, and we do have a lot of female fans. One of the coolest things that happened with our campaign is we got contacted by a lady who wanted to buy the Get Knocked Out perk, and she said she contacted both of us and said, "Hi, you know, I'm so and so, and I want to get the knocked out perk." Which was, you know, a $200 perk where I'll draw their face on there getting creamed, you know, get knocked out. And she said, "I just want to make sure you don't mind knocking out a lady." And
we're like, hey, absolutely not.
No problem.
We will knock a lady out straight away. That's totally fine. If you want
to pay to get knocked out, we'll knock you out.
Yeah.
So I love that. You know, like, that's so cool that she thought enough of that and liked that enough that she would pay us to have her drawn into our comic. I mean,
yeah,
that's just awesome.
I thought you were going to say that you already had, like, the body already drawn. You were just waiting to draw a guy's head in.
No, buddy. No, I'm ready to draw whoever wants to be in there. So we're you know, total, you know, equal opportunity.
We'll knock out a guy, a girl. We'll knock out a dog.
It doesn't matter your race, your creed, your ethnicity. It doesn't matter.
A horse. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll knock it out. It's fine.
If you pay for it, we'll knock it out.
That's right. 100%.
There's definitely ladies in the fandom, and they're generally speaking, the ones that come to books like ours are just like really cool, you know.
Yep.
Very likable.
Yeah, they like their He-Man and their Conan stories, and they like their 80s action movie guys, you know.
Yeah. Well, we like.
I think there's a lot of them. Like,
I think there's probably a market for it, more of a market than most of us know at this point. Like, and the problem is, I mean, it's always a problem is getting in front of these people. How do you reach them? And it's the same thing for ladies that like stuff like that. It's how do you get in front of, get your product in front of them, and so that they put their dollars down in your book. And it's hard. It's hard to figure out where you need to market to get these specific ladies, because they're not the ladies, like you said. They're not the one buying My Little Pony, and they're not buying cat postcards. They're buying you know, sweet rock and roll inspired comic books and stuff, and we just got to figure out where to put those down. It's hard.
Well, let's give a final pitch, Karl, and then we'll sign off. Does that sound good to you?
You got to ask him our questions, though.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay, you go ahead, Macho. Ask him.
All right.
Is this like inside the actor's studio?
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like.
Yes.
So we have a couple questions we ask everybody, that we ask everyone, and they're important because when you are backing a creator, you want to kind of get a little, you want to learn a little bit about them, right? Like the truth behind, or the real person behind what they see on Twitter or whatever it is. So these questions we feel like really cut to the root, right? So the first question that we want to ask you is, have you ever been in a fist fight? And if so, what did the other guy look like?
I'm trying to think of if I was ever in.
And just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
good. Let's hear it.
I was in a real dark fist fight. Like,
at
the darkest point. It was the darkest point. It was, I just started college and I realized a big mistake I made. And my first day at college, my second dog died. while I
Oh,
was on a
no.
walk with him.
Oh,
And that, I think it was that same weekend, me and a couple of my local friends went down to the pub. And
That's
no, even
that's
before that,
always
we
how
didn't.
a good story starts. Is me and my buddies went down to the pub.
Yeah, but then there was one guy who always kind of hung around with the crowd who, for some reason, like I didn't get on with me, and I never got on with him. And they were. It's gonna sound stupid. I
It's
just turned
okay.
18. Okay, so don't. I was just turned 18 at this point, so um, I was like just angry and like the darkest point I've ever been, and he was kind of starting shit, and there was this new like crappy playground that was just built in a community center, and the ground was still all sort of like muddy and stuff,
Yeah.
and we just used to like get cans and hang out there after the pub, and some people were jumping on the swings and whatever, and then he kind of out of nowhere just sort of started. I think it started as like a joke. It was like just light tapping and sort of like like trying to put people on holds, and then it just kicked off. And I had my
Okay.
glasses on, so I threw my glasses off, and I'm like blind, like.
Swinging at
But
whatever moved.
I think it was more like there was definitely a couple. I think he tried to kick me, and I was like, "That's weird." Like trying to actually kick someone in a real life fight, like that's a weird move, man.
yeah.
Like I did karate and stuff. I never tried to kick someone. It just seemed like you're like it just seems so weird. to feel like I'm gonna pick my leg up.
Yeah.
But I remember him
Sport.
trying to properly, yeah, he trying to properly kick me, and I was like, "What? You think you're like Bruce Lee, dude?" And then there was a good couple of punches thrown, but it definitely ended as more of like a pinning face in the mud. But I remember I was covered. We were like covered in muck,
That's a
and
fantastic story.
because it was rainy, it was the new college year, so it was just September. It was rainy, punched in the. It was like the end of Lethal Weapon.
That's fantastic.
All right, you're not going to
instead of all the
any other
bleachers on
Carl
my
interview.
friend.
That's excellent. That's probably my favorite. Have you been in the fight story? Because we've asked a lot of people, and the closest thing we got was Mike Barron told us about how these. He was in a subway in Boston, and these punks were playing music on their portable stereo, and he got up in their face and told them to turn it down. Their boombox, that's what it was. Yeah. And he got up in their face and told them to turn it down, and they knocked him down, or they beat him down a little bit. So
I had a lot of physical like it was always just the one thing. It was like someone would get me to the edge, but they never would think I'd do it. Like I'd go out because I was like the quiet nerdy guy. Like I remember one time. Yeah, I remember one time there's a guy like who sat beside me in maths in what like we call a secondary school, but for you guys it'd be high school. And I remember he kept jabbing at my leg and so with pencil and stuff. And I remember getting up, just standing up, like when you're standing up over a stool and you're like way higher than the guys. And then,
that's fantastic.
And I just remember punching down, and that was the end of it. And then
that's awesome.
And then there was another time in the same maths class, but 3 years later, there was this guy who was a known sort of he dropped out before the end. He was messed up. Like this guy was like dealing drugs when he was like 14, I think. He was a real sort of just nobody ever told him what to do, Yeah. And he used to slag off my friend Andrea a lot. And I remember we were coming out of maths class, and he was holding the door when people were all walking out, this wooden frame door. And everybody that tried to walk out, he got like, whoo, whoo, and pretend to slam it on them. And Andrea, I put Andrea in front of me, and I was like, go, go, go. And then he really kind of went to do it like that. And when he went like that, I grabbed it and I kind of took it off him, and then I pushed it back like past the hinge into him.
Yeah.
And then it was like a big like, "Cool, screaming! I'm gonna get you! I'm gonna!" But they didn't do anything because it's like those guys never do. Like those guys are.
That's classic bully. They try to look big and they act big until you push back, and then they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, they might make a lot of noise, but they never do anything. Cool.
I always found like even the people that I was bullied as like a really young kid, when we got into our high school age, they were like the weirdest guys ever. I was like, wow, like I feel sorry for you, man. Like you were really hurting. Like,
I found that the guys that were bullies when I was in high school, like I've seen some people since high school, and really, like, time does a number on people like that. I think, like, I've seen guys and I'm like, they were bullies and they had a lot going for them in high school, and they went way past the line of having fun, and they are, like, not working at where they thought they were going to be, not dating the girls they thought they were going to be dating, and certainly not looking like they were planning on looking, I don't think. And it's kind of sad, some of those guys, the way they end up, because they get like they try to take with power, and then they take more than they should in every aspect of their lives, because that's what they were have been brought up doing, and it ends up those guys don't end up being successful. Us nerds, we end up being successful.
Macho's got a lot of street wisdom. I've noticed that since we've been asking people these questions, Macho has come up with a lot of street wisdom. I think he's been around the block a few times.
Yeah, you learn that stuff on the streets.
Well, all right, guys, the next question.
We got one more question, and this is Mutt's favorite question, I think. Yeah. And so we like to ask everybody, what was the worst job that you've ever had? Like, does it involve poop, or like working really hard, or just like, what's the worst job you ever had to do? We want to know.
I mean, I could, it's not for me. It's actually like, I mean, I've done some crappy stuff. I remember one time I had to clean out my dad's factory. He's a steel engineer, stainless steel.
Yeah.
I had to get behind, and he didn't give me gloves for like a whole day. He just forgot.
Wow.
So I was picking metal filings out of my hands.
Oh man, that hurts.
And but that stuff, I mean, I would rather work drilling holes in a piece of steel and welding metal than ever do a corporate art job that I wasn't into, because I've done those, and those are like those things take longer than any physical thing. And I don't know, maybe it's because I do it so much that the physical stuff seems like a break for me now. I probably should do that like more than I should ever do corporate crap. Sometimes even doing commissions for someone where you're like, they don't want you to do your cool thing, they want to do their thing, and it's like, come on, man, like, I really want to make I know I have to make it what you want, but my thing's so much cooler.
Yeah, right.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, like a super bad job, I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you one thing that I did. It wasn't, I don't think it's technically a job. Oh, no way. Another bad thing I did was I had to do community service. That was really fucked up.
You have to like pick up trash on the side of the highway. That's what usually.
No. Oh no. It wasn't like I was getting out of like beating up some granny or something. I had to do community service. It was like you had to do it in transition year.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like
it's like character building.
Oh.
No?
This was the depth of character.
Oh.
it was like a it was an old folks home, but it wasn't it wasn't one where they stayed in. It was one where they got collected to and brought over, and it was like being in a completely different world. And they never, and we would be told like, you have to play chess with them and stuff, and they didn't want anything to do with you. They were like they were just so annoyed just being there.
Like they just wanted to watch Wheel of Fortune. They wanted to watch Wheel of Fortune, and this young kid is trying to come over and play chess with them.
Yeah, it was crazy. But another weird thing was I did a week in a toy store. It was like one of these upscale toy stores that are over here, And what I found out pretty quickly was that all the workers in there, because I wasn't technically a salesperson, I was just a guy going around and cleaning stuff, really. I didn't know what else, and fixing stuff. But the salespeople were on a commission. So if you were talking to anybody, they would dive in. Like, no matter what, someone could come up to
Wow.
you and go like, someone could, and they were like hawks. They were like sharks in the water. They were out to kill each other. It was insane. And like, I couldn't talk to, and like, someone would come and be like, "Do you know where the thing are?" And someone would immediately, and they're all like looking at each other, like over toy shelves, like, "Are you talking?" Trying to get their commission. It was insane.
That's funny.
There you go. You heard it here, folks. The 2 worst jobs Karl ever had, and like 5 or 6 fights that he got into.
He's yeah.
There was one fight, and there was 2 physical like confrontations. That's it.
That's okay. Those are fights enough for us, and we enjoyed them.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And we know that those are kind of kooky questions, but I always feel like you get so much mileage out of those 2 questions, because especially when you're talking to guys, everybody's got something that they've been involved with, and you don't forget that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, Macho,
Cool.
why don't you close us out?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining. We've had people in and out throughout the conversation, and typically we are up against some heavy YouTube hitters at the moment. So we appreciate everybody that did watch. Karl, thanks for coming on with us. We know we don't draw the biggest crowd. Hopefully we'll have some watchers after the fact, and we'll get some people onto DEATHSWORN. It's a really cool book. I'm really excited about it, and it looks beautiful. It's right up our alley. Obviously, Mutt has already put his cold hard cash down on some copies, some collector's editions. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Real quick, we wanted to give an update for our comic hero. Mutt he sent me what I need to say here, but we have 1 blade left on our campaign. We're in demand right now. Yep. We are at 59.47, I believe, is where we're at. Yeah, 59.47 in demand. We have 1 blade left, which means that is Volk's blade. And Karl, Volk, our character, one of our evil villains of our book, he likes to kill people with blades. And then once he kills you, so if he killed DEATHSWORN, I know that wouldn't happen. All right, I know it wouldn't happen. But let's say he did. He'd etch DEATHSWORN's name on the blade, and then he'd hang it up in his trophy room. So if you want to get that done, if you want to die by Volk's blade, check it out, everybody. It's on our Indiegogo page, which I will share in the chat. Yeah, and I think that's it. What do you got to say, Mutt, for yourself?
Working on pages, sending some pages to the colorists, so those are coming back in, and we love them. They're on the Indiegogo page now, so I've updated the colored pages that we've got, and we're going to get more in pretty soon, so things are moving right along.
Yeah.
And we're having a ton of fun doing it, which is the main thing. The Hero is all about having a really good time making fun comics, just like DEATHSWORN, which I am absolutely head over heels for DEATHSWORN. That is my favorite comic, one of the top probably 5 independent comics that I'm into, along with some other heavy hitters that we always talk about. But DEATHSWORN is an amazing comic. I'm real proud to have Karl on our show, and I'm so glad he took the time, especially as late as it is.
It's 4 a.m. in Ireland now.
Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Please go to bed and get some sleep.
Yeah, get to bed, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, guys. No, I love this show. This is a great show. We always talk like it's not just a book show. We talk about everything. It's great.
Yeah, we like to keep it fun. We don't want it to be too serious. We like to ask what your worst jobs are.
Well, we'll get you back on too sometime just to shoot the breeze about other stuff too. All right.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Thanks everybody for stopping by, and go back DEATHSWORN Book 1 on Indiegogo, and go back Hero Blood of Patriots also. And let's get to that 6,500. We don't talk about this enough, but at 6,500, Macho's got to grow out that dastardly Dan mustache that he does not want to do. So we want to see that. let's keep the important things up front. Okay.
Yeah, seriously, let's do that.
All right. Later. Peace.
See ya.